Hey there. So, my next guest is living proof that you do not have to be schooled in the thing that you become educated in, because his background is absolutely fascinating. He really gets into racing and software, and he was able to merge his passion for both and turn them into something fundamental in the sim area. So, you guys are going to love this one. I know I did. I enjoyed talking to him. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today, I have a very special guest with us. I have Sean Yoder. Hey there, Sean. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I greatly appreciate it. Can't wait to dive into it. Like I said right before we went on, I'm an open book. Ask me whatever you want. I've been involved in gaming for way longer than I care to admit. I think the gray in my beard kind of shows it. So, I'm looking forward to it.
I love it.
What are we talking about?
Okay, so I don't do a lot of fluff on the show. I go straight to it. So why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. Do you want to know professional background, personal background?
We'll definitely get into the full professional background in a few minutes,
Okay.
But you just kind of quick recap. Who are you?
Honestly, I am a automotive enthusiast. I am a race car driver. I am a high performance driving instructor. I am hopelessly addicted to all things wheels and petrol power, and now EVs and anything that you can have fun with that has to do with motion and wheels and engines. It just makes me go, man. And I've been racing in some way, shape, or form since I was 4 years old, and I just turned 50 last August. So I don't think I've made it this far, and I think that means I don't have to grow up, which is beautiful.
50 years young. I love it. All right. So, Sean, before we kind of get into the gaming thing, which I'll ask you in a second, the entrepreneurship,
Sure.
we'll discuss in a minute. I start every interview with a single question. So I'm going to ask you, just like I ask everybody else who's ever come on this show, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how weird are you?
How weird am I? Can I go off the scale?
Sure thing.
Okay, 12-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, I am literally, like, I say this all the time, and my wife would vouch for me if she was here right now. I know, and I've come to realize, I came to realize probably 2 decades ago, but I've come to figure out that I'm wired 180 degrees out of phase with most of humanity. Like, I process information differently. It's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know. I've never gone into the neuroscience of what's going on up here, but I'm not normal. I know that for a fact.
Okay. That's possibly the most unique answer to that question I've had. Okay. I had someone who said they spoke dragon. So, I mean, there's that, but
I'm not, I don't do that. I don't do that at all. It's weird, man. Like, I process things. I process things a little differently. I process things a little out of phase with what most would consider to be the norm. And I look at it as an advantage now. I used to look at it as a disadvantage, but now it allows me to analyze things and sort of see angles that not everyone sees. And I have grown to dig it.
For sure. I really want to know what some of those things are. Before we do it, though, this is the Gamerpreneur podcast. So I do need your gaming cred. When did you first start playing video games?
Oh, my God. Backyard of my uncle's house in 1974-ish. He used to take his Atari 2600 out into the backyard, and we used to sit out. I was 4 years old, and we used to sit out there until all hours of the morning playing Breakout and Indy 500 and Warlords. And this is not something that I just woke up a couple years ago and went, I think I'll play a game. It's been a while.
For sure. And I take it your love of gaming continued since then.
Of course.
Okay.
I just got a PS5. I literally just got a PS5.
I know that, but they don't know that.
They know it now. I got a PS5. It's not going anywhere.
Okay. What games did you just get?
I didn't get. Honestly, I got the PS5 because of Nemesis Lab, because of what we do at Nemesis Lab, and I got the PS5 because it's going to be a demo tool that goes out to the field with us. I would be lying if I said I wasn't going to enjoy playing Gran Turismo Sport in the lab and at the house. I'm going to, but it is a demo tool. It's totally a demo tool.
Okay, I love it.
I told my wife that.
Right. Wink. Now you've had the gamut. You've had them all. You've had access to every game out there, more or less. If you had to pick one as your all-time favorite, which one would it be?
Dear Lord. Oh my God.
We asked the hard-hitting questions here.
It would probably, because of the software companies that I was part owner of and founder of, and the physics development that I was involved in, and all of the large scale projects that we did within this software foundation, it would probably have to be the original R Factor. It's not well known outside of motorsport circles, but that software, it wasn't the catalyst for me knowing the folks that I knew in the software development side of the gaming world and starting the software companies that I helped to start. That wasn't the catalyst. That came, that was software that we started ripping apart way before we got into R Factor and making it do what we wanted it to do. But the R Factor software and that platform's modability really allowed us to expand what we were doing and start creating some pretty high level experiential event software. And then it led to a couple large scale products with international race series, just all kinds of different stuff that we did with that. So that R Factor.
Very cool. Okay. I've been dying. I want to get over to the preneur part. Please tell us, what is your professional background and how did you get to where you are today?
Honestly, I've always worked in something to do with either the automotive field or motorsport. I've always been around cars. I spent a lot of time as a high performance driving instructor for some rather large manufacturers, high performance driving instructor and product expert for those brands. I was very fortunate to work with Porsche North America at their the Porsche Sport Driving School is what it used to be called when I was there. I was an instructor there for a couple of years, and was with the SRT brand within Fiat Chrysler, and traveled all over the country teaching people how to drive SRT vehicles, Hellcats and Vipers, and teaching how to drive them fast on racetracks, and just enjoying being a part of those brands and helping to launch and release them. And before that, I owned a couple software companies. We built motorsport based simulation and driver development software, glorified games, high end, really geeky games, basically is what it amounts to. When you're talking about an engineering tool in simulation, at the end of the day, it's a very serious tool, but it's also a really geeky, math-laden game. I mean, that's really what simulation is. And I just, if I can go back to where I kind of got my start and what drove me into having being a part of those software companies, I just was racing cars that weren't being represented in video games. So I found a group of folks that wanted to get together and actually create the cars that we were racing. And I don't have a physics background. I'm not a vehicle dynamicist. I am not a chassis dynamics guy. I'm not an aerodynamics guy. But through being involved in motorsport and being involved with the groups that I was involved with and in creating the software companies, I sort of taught myself. I don't have a PhD, but I do understand suspension geometry, and I understand, shock valving and tuning, and I understand why you want to go with X spring versus Y spring on what corner of the car, and, caster camber toe, and how aero, builds up in relation to the direction of travel. And I can look at a CFD program and actually do some analysis and come out the other side with a better car. But
Very cool.
I'm not a doctor. I don't have a PhD, but
Okay. And
that's kind of where I got into it.
sure. And what is Nemesis Lab? So you can explain.
Nemesis Lab is actually we started it in 2018 through the software companies that I was a part of. I got to consult with various hardware manufacturers over the years, and about 3 years ago, woke up realizing that if I was ever going to take the ideas that I had for hardware and what I thought needed to be done, I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying that I've got a whole lot of time in real race cars and real vehicles and just being able to take all of that knowledge and put it into the hardware side of things like we were doing with the software side of things became really appealing to me. And that's what Nemesis Lab is. We're a simulation and gaming hardware development company. We don't do the software at Nemesis. We can if somebody wants us to develop, a car or a racetrack or physics modeling or anything like that. I could get the team back together. That's not a problem. But our core purpose, like I am sitting in our first production chassis right now. We call it the NL01. We sold a number of these, and now we've moved on to, this is a tubular design chassis, and then we moved on to a aluminum plate design chassis where it's just a lot less labor intensive on our side with the plate design. And yeah, just we build hardware. We build cool places to sit and race, fly, game, work, stream. What do you want to do?
This is so cool. Sean, like your story is incredible because it's the kind of a dichotomy. You've got driving and then you've got software. And generally when you think of a stereotypical gamer, right, which I don't, I've interviewed enough people, there is no such thing. But when you think of that stereotype, those two things just generally wouldn't seem to go together, right?
I don't know. I really don't know. I know I do know, I guess. In the motorsport side, most of the folks, and I can't say guys, it's guys and gals that are developing motorsport-based or vehicular-based games or games, simulation, art, simcade, whatever you want to call the genre that they're developing in. Most of the developers are either into that type of gaming or they're into that in real life and it spills over into the game development. Maybe more so than developers in other genres. I don't know, but I know a lot of folks that are like, I've been fortunate. I did minimal stuff with Turn 10, and Turn 10 is they developed the Forza franchise for Xbox. And hanging out with those folks, and I got to go to their studio out in Washington State and did a little interview with them years ago when I was with SRT actually, and hanging out. And we actually at one point, one of the hardware companies that I was consulting with, we took Forza, I can't remember which one it was, I think it was 5, and we had a development Xbox that they flew out to Road Atlanta from Washington State, and we integrated a development Xbox. There was 3 Xboxes because we had a triple screen display, and we went through the Xbox into a laptop to our motion control software, and we were running Forza on the console through a laptop through a motion simulator, and it was unbelievable. It was absolutely unbelievable. But all of the engineers, like they had to send engineers out from Turn 10, and everybody that was there was just into it, man. Like they weren't, it wasn't like I'm pigeonholed into my little, I do tire modeling and that's all I do. And I don't really care about the rest of the game. And I don't get, did that answer the question? I think that answered the question.
Good. Yes, it did. Okay. Was this a lifelong dream? Like at what point in your journey did you decide to go down this path? Did you stumble into it, or was this something you've always been working toward?
I wouldn't say it was really not. This wasn't the lifelong dream. The lifelong dream was to figure out a way to be involved actively in motorsport, in racing in general. And then I got very fortunate, and I would say I got very fortunate. It was very fortunate. It was also through a lot of follow up and dedication. I got the position with Porsche, and I absolutely adore Porsche to this day, and what they do is incredible. But the gaming side of it was a byproduct of my want to be involved in motorsport, and then we started doing that thing that I was talking about, where we're ripping apart other pieces of software and making them do what we wanted them to do, not what the developers at that time wanted them to do. And then sort of a light bulb started to come on, and that led to other projects that then all of a sudden we sat down and went, we're good enough to do this professionally. And it was the progression. It wasn't like I woke up one morning going, I want to develop games and that's what I have to do. But now it is. Now what I'm doing is it's passion driven, man. And it has to be, because I mean, being an entrepreneur in anything, you have to know, like it's very rare that someone hits the ground running and just knocks it out of the park within the first, year, 2 or 3. This takes time. I'm waiting for someone. I'm literally waiting for Nemesis to become more of a household brand and having an interview like we're having right now, and then somebody going, you guys came out of nowhere. I'm waiting to be able to laugh at that. I can't wait for the day when I can go, yeah, it only took us 20 years to come out of nowhere. It's all, but yeah.
Okay.
Long story short, wasn't my goal, but ended up being my goal.
Okay. I love that answer, especially how you mentioned that it takes 1, 2, 3 years plus, up to 20 plus to make something of yourself as an entrepreneur. What does it take to succeed as an entrepreneur? You obviously have done it a couple times here. Like, what are the qualities, the skills, the talents that are required in someone who's going to go the distance?
I've been very fortunate. I mean, we've had some successes. I wouldn't, I've never had success. I didn't own EA Sports or anything like that, but we did okay. We did okay, and we were involved in projects that the team that we had assembled wanted to be involved in, and that was very important. Was to be able to. I measured success, and we're doing something that we want to do for a living, and we're doing it well. And none of us became 100 millionaires overnight, but we enjoyed what we did, and that in and of itself was success. It's just, I'm trying to think of exactly where I want to go with this, to be honest.
Here, let me ask it a little way, or a little
Sure.
differently. So at the beginning, you mentioned that you think differently. So maybe there's somebody else out there who thinks probably the same way you do, because not everybody's the same, and there are those
Sure.
unique ones out there who
Sure.
might be told that they're different, and so they're being put down. How is it that you approach a problem, and how do you conquer it? That way, maybe someone out there listens to, goes, hey, that's how I do it too, and then they can see a path forward.
When I have something sitting in front of me, I look for puzzle pieces. If there's a particular thing that we need to accomplish, I've found over the years that typically solutions don't necessarily have to be built from scratch. And being able to identify, if I take this from here, this from here, this from over here, this from over here, get this team to come in and do this, and it's just being able to pivot my brain in directions to go, this problem is going to take these puzzle pieces and assemble that. And I've been very fortunate in being able to assemble that team to accomplish, goal A, goal B, goal C. And I know a lot of people, they look at a problem and it's very linear. And for me, it's almost fractals. It's literally like, I see problems as it's this broken thing that needs to be put back together, kind of thing. That's about as good as I'm going to be able to explain that process. Okay. You don't want to get inside my head that much. It's scary. It's
okay. Let's hop in a time machine, Sean. Let's actually
Sure.
get a little more personal. Let's go back in time. We'll say 32 years. So you should be 18 years old, or we're going to go up to 18-year-old you, and you're going to get to explain to him all the ups and downs, all the good, the bad. You get to impart on him all of the wisdom and knowledge. You get to tell him the entire path that you've taken, and you can tell him what he needs to do in order to do his life bigger, better, faster, more profitable, whatever your definition of success is, or his success is. But there was one thing he absolutely had to know. What would you tell 18-year-old you?
You can't do it on your own. Yeah. I mean, that more than anything to me, it's always been, I'm not going to sit here and say that, ego doesn't come into play when you're an entrepreneur. At some level, you have to have self-belief and belief in your ability to actually steer that ship. But you also, I think, really have to, at an early stage, understand that it's going to require those puzzle pieces. And those puzzle pieces for me was figuring out, this person needs to do this. This person needs to do this. This person is really good at this. And that's what I started figuring that out in my later 20s, early 30s. And I wish I would have known that.
Was there a particular instance that made that one click for you?
I think it was more of a progression over time that really I didn't wake up one morning and go, oh my God, this is what makes sense to me. But, when I look back, about 20 years ago or so is when, again, that light bulb started to come on over my head. And I was like, this is not something that I can build by myself. There's none of this works as a solo deal. I'm not a marathon runner who's in here training by myself and out there running 26 miles and some change by myself, and it's all on me. This requires a team. And I think anything that's worth doing is worth doing with people that are actually as passionate about it as you are, in my mind.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Okay. Now, Sean, you have accomplished so much. You've done some incredible things in your life. You really have, though. You really have. You make simulators. That's so cool. I guess simulators are redundant, but that's beside the point. I don't want anyone thinking you're Superman. I want everybody who watches this show to realize that the person I'm talking to, even though they've accomplished great things, they're human just like us, and we all make mistakes. And you see, I believe that we learn the most in our life from our failures, not necessarily our successes. Because if you succeed the first time you try something, you may not realize what happened. But if you fail, you got to take a look at it. You got to be able to figure what happened and then move past it to be able to succeed the next time. So I'd like to ask you, what do you consider your biggest failure in life, and what did you learn from it?
Ooh, biggest failure in life. Biggest failure in life is a tough one, man. Biggest failure in business. Because honestly, my life is, I can't complain. I have an amazing wife. I have a house full of cats and greyhounds, and we have race cars in the garage, and it's really tough for me to figure something out life-wise that's horrible. But business-wise, there was a particular project that we were working on that we poured 3.5+ years of development time into. And we woke up one morning, we saw it coming to a certain extent that this particular race series that we were working with was going to merge back in with another race series, but we really didn't know. And none of us took the time to dig into what happens when that merger takes place. And what would have been a major AAA release for us ended up being shelved as a result of not doing that due diligence. Luckily, during the development time frame, we were being compensated for that development to a certain extent. Teams were using it as driver development tools. They were using it as engineering tools. They were using it for experiential events, stuff like that. So we weren't funding the entire development out of pocket, which made the blow a little bit easier. But I look back on that and I just think I do every once in a while think we could have done that a little differently. And if we had, we may have, instead of me saying that R Factor was my favorite software ever, it would have been our AAA title that I would have told you was my favorite gaming software ever. But I still have it. It's on a hard drive. I can play it anytime I want. No one else can, but I mean, me and the 30 plus people that were on the development team can play it, but that's about the only people that have ever really seen it. And that hurts. That I consider that to be probably my biggest failure, because I didn't dig in hard enough.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
On the flip side, a little more positive. What's something that you're working to improve on yourself today?
Working to improve on myself today, I'm trying to figure out how to be more present now. I'm really trying to work on that, and it's something that as you get older, time moves faster, and I have some theories about that too, that my warped brain sits there and tries to figure out why, because it's cruel. It's totally cruel. When you were 4 years old and you were hanging out in your backyard on a swing in the summertime, that day lasted forever. And now Christmas is always tomorrow. It's literally like it's Christmas, and then you have Christmas Day, and then it's like, did you get your Christmas shopping done? Because it's Christmas tomorrow. It's like it's boom, 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 boom. The years are just flying by, and so I'm trying to be more present. I'm trying to figure out how to slow it down and give my brain a little bit more time to decode things and not really get caught up in 3 months we got to do this, and in 6 months we got to do this, and in a year we got to do this, and I want to be more present.
Wonderful. One more fun question before we bring this in for a landing.
Sure.
What is something that you think people misunderstand about you the first time they meet you?
I'm actually a pretty happy person. A lot of people, upon first meeting, a lot of times, oddly enough, I'm pretty much an introvert. I'm a high functioning introvert, and when I first meet someone outside of an environment, like we're meeting literally face to face for the first time, and I can do this. And I did stand-up comedy for several years too. And I can get up on stage and I can tell jokes in front of a crowd, and I can bring them in and read the room and do all that stuff. But then when I'm done with that, I want to go be by myself. And I'm not always incredibly outgoing when I first meet someone.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on as an introvert. Sean, this was a blast. How do people find you? How do they reach out to you? Where's Nemesis Labs? Contact information, all that, please.
Yeah, www.nemesislab.com. That's our website. Right now, it is a Shopify store, but we do everything in our power to funnel everyone from the store to actually speaking with me personally, because what we're building right now in the simulation hardware space is definitely a premium product, and we're doing our best to make sure that we curate that product for individual needs. And I've found that over the years, having a one-stop shop and something that just arrives in a box on the high end side, it doesn't necessarily work for people. We want to be able to customize it for whatever the use case that you have. There's some stuff coming that will be more of what I would consider to be a mid-entry point for us, and that's going to be where we stay. So www.nemesislab.com, you can find us there. Sales@nemesislab.com if you have any questions for us. Just ping me there, or we have a Nemesis Lab Facebook page. You can always direct message us there, and it will be me that's reaching out to you after you do that. And then also you can find another thing that I'm involved with. I'm one of the co-founders of the eRacing Association, and you can find me over there as well. And the eRacing Association is a sanctioning body for very high stakes sim racing, very serious sim racing. We have some really big tournaments that are going on 4 times a year at the eRacing Association. So you can find me there as well. And that's eragaming.gg and our eRacing Association on Facebook.
All right, wonderful, Sean. Thank you. Now, as we wrap this up, do you have any final thoughts you want to share? Anything I didn't ask you think we still need to cover?
Man, I really don't. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you bringing me on. I appreciate Jesse Iwuji for actually recommending that you reach out to me. Jesse and I we're partners over at ERA at the eRacing Association, and I love the guy to death. And thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. And I hope that was informative and somewhat entertaining.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much. I genuinely do appreciate you coming on with us today. I do. Okay.
Thanks,
now, of course. Thanks for having me. And for everybody else, I'm going to remind you all, don't be just a gamer, be a gamerpreneur.